The media. Do we even need the media anymore? Or rather, what's the future of media? How will we be getting information about our favorite teams and our favorite players in the future? And how will we be watching our favorite teams and our favorite players in the future? The world's changing and sports media is changing with it. So we're talking about it next on the Sports Pod Time Machine. Welcome once again to the Sports Pod Time Machine, everybody. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I'm Dimitri Draktis, as always, joined by my co-pilots, Pete Sod and Rich Glanzer. What's going on, boys?
How you doing, Smooth?
Doing all right, man. Petey, what's up, brother? So we are talking media today. The media. Do we even need the media anymore? How's the media changing? What's the media going to look like? What's the future of media and the future of the way that we consume games and the way that we have access to players and to content? I think, listen, for me, the media is always going to be there, but it's changing. The form of the media is changing. And the reality is right here. Look no further than this, guys. Just the idea of the podcast. I don't know, 10 people may hear this, 10,000 people may hear this. But right here, this is the example of what the media is going to be, because we are all the media. Everyone is the media right now. We all have access to each other. We all have a platform through social media, through things like podcasts. We all can give our opinion. We all can get our opinion out. So this in and of itself is a huge example of how media is going to change, how media is going to evolve. Pete, what are you thinking? Where do you think media is going? I mean, do we need traditional media anymore?
You still need traditional media. We were discussing this earlier, and you know, Dimitri had mentioned to me that you had mentioned maybe, or you thought that you don't need it in the form that it is now, but you still do to a point. Now, are radio stations making money anymore? No. Cable's going to change at some point, so all these rights packages are going to be able to be seen on other types of media like streaming. But you're still going to need something, because some sort of media presence, because it's always been there. Newspapers are still writing articles, even though that whole media is in a different world. And yes, now they're posting instead of necessarily always publishing. You're finding it online, but you're going to still need media in some form.
Richie, man, I know we've talked about this before. I mean, do we need the media?
Yes, 100%. And I'll tell you why. Especially, I mean, you know, we're a sports podcast, but like, you know, this will relate to sports. The media is another form of detectives that aren't getting paid by the police, because, like, you know, police aren't going to, like, you know, say, hey, we corrupted ourselves. Here's our proof. No, I mean, the media, you know, they find out, and the media has to do investigation. And that's how corruption in politics and anything gets found out, basically through the media. And so with sports, I look at it just recently, just a very, you know, when we're doing this thing, Todd Frazier just got traded to the Mets again, and Jacob deGrom was being interviewed. He lost the game. He was really upset. And they go, by the way, Todd Frazier's back. What do you think? And he's like, oh, I don't, we just lost a game. I don't care. We just lost a game. Now, he was very upset. If you speak to Jacob deGrom an hour later, he's going to be polished. Oh, well, I'm happy to have him back. He was a really good teammate, blah, blah. No, we get to see the raw emotion. We don't get that without the media, because if you trust the players to post on Twitter themselves, they're only going to post, as we all know, the best version of themselves. They're going to so rarely have their raw emotions come out. And the media does a good job of trying to get that out, or at least they should. And that's why the media is so needed, is because we still need information, and we still need to get it in a timely fashion, and the fashion not necessarily that the player wants to come out.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree, but I don't know that I necessarily totally agree with that. But so I'll make a point first, and I'm going to circle back to that. The Queens Baseball Club, okay? It's a partnership between Yahoo and the Mets. It died before it even started. But this is where the future of media is going. So basically, the Wilpons partnered with Yahoo. It was going to be this subscription service. And you were going to get these exclusive interviews with the front office, with coaches, with players. You were going to have exclusive access events. And then Yahoo was going to go and they were going to partner with all the teams to create this. And so basically, teams were going to control the content. And I think that's what you're talking about. You have a fear of this happening. It died before it even started for reasons that are unclear. It was going to be called the Queens Baseball Club. But I think that's where we're going. I think players are going to control, teams and players are going to control the content. You've already started to see that, by the way, with the Players Tribune, right, where the players are basically writing their own content. So you're getting these articles from the player. And you're seeing that with regional television networks, right? So, I mean, the Yankees own the Yes Network, the Mets with SNY. So you're already starting to see the teams basically kind of own and control the content. And I think through things like what was going to be the Queens Baseball Club, through things like the Players Tribune, they're going to start to control more of it. Now, Rich, you're saying that you still need the traditional media, though. You need these guys in the locker room.
Yeah, so that's all fine as long as it's extra. The more the better. So, like, I love the Players Tribune. That's amazing, but you don't want that to be the only source how you could get to the players. You still need, listen, you still need the reporters asking tough questions. Why isn't this guy playing to a manager? They need to know, hey, how do you feel about yourself not playing now,
But what are you going to get, though? I mean, really, what are you getting? Because honestly, you've been in the locker rooms. I've spent time in there. They live in those locker rooms. Honestly, it's a kind of a weird thing because you go into the Met, Yankee, whoever's locker room you go into, and literally you see their wallet, the pictures of their family. They live in there. And they've just finished doing their job, and regardless of what people think, they leave their heart and soul on the field. And now you have some stranger in your face. And granted, it's part of the job. They're making a lot of money, but it's an uncomfortable thing. At best, it's just kind of a weird, uncomfortable situation. And what do you expect? I mean, and they are raw, but all right, so you're going to get them to say things because they're frustrated. I mean, is that really that great? Do we really need that as fans? I mean, that's that's the same reason we rubberneck on a road, because we need to see the accident on the other side. But what are you really getting at? You mentioned the Todd Frazier thing. Did you really get any substance out of that?
Yeah, I actually did. It was just really interesting to see how Jacob DeGrom
frustrated because they lost and the Jacob DeGrom is better composed. I mean, I don't know that we need that.
You might not have got anything, but I liked it. I saw how frustrated he was. He gave up, 3 unearned runs, but 4 runs, and it was just an interesting. I haven't seen Jacob DeGrom look that frustrated. It was really fascinating to see him, do the hand over his forehead and just be like, oh, I don't care. You don't hear players saying, I don't care, whatever the version of I don't care he said. I don't want to quote him. But it was interesting. And you could get the raw emotions. I wanted, when Cam Newton left the Super Bowl after he lost Super Bowl and he just walked out. That was, that was raw emotion, and I enjoyed that. I know a lot of people don't like him for that, but I understood where he's coming from, and I kind of feel like I don't want to lose that. Yeah, a lot of times you're going to get the cliches. Most of the time you're going to get the cliches, but every once in a while you get a hidden gem, and I want to get those hidden gems. I don't want to just make it oh, this is great. This is the best day ever. It's okay that I'm sitting. I don't mind sitting. I love sitting. No, who wants that? Come on. This is I don't know
that we're getting it out of that anyway, out of them. I think there's two sides. So you get the Manish Mehta guys. I don't know, the audience may not all be New York, but he's a guy who covers the Jets, and he just throws these crazy things out there because we're mentioning him right now in the podcast. So he'll just throw things, and a lot of times these are hit jobs on the coaches, they're hit jobs on the players, but he knows that they're going to get clicks on the internet. He knows that he's going to get people to read it. So you have that side of it where you have people being controversial or attacking these guys just to do it. And you listen, when you go back further in time, you had a guy like Dick Young who was so upset, and he was a New York sports writer who basically chased Tom Seaver out of town. He was so upset with the salaries these guys were making. I think there was a jealousy level that there was constant hit jobs on these guys. And so you have that side of the media that's just kind of in attack mode or just trying to make a name for themselves. Rich, you want to say something?
Yeah, so when I was a youngin', I reported for the Jets back in the day, Keyshawn Johnson's first season, and they were grilling him, and I was a new reporter, so I was just keeping my mouth shut and just listening. And then afterwards, I thought they were a little unfair. And afterwards, someone goes, "What was that about?" to one of them. He goes, I was just trying to get him to say something stupid. So yeah, you're going to have reporters like that. And that's why the players don't trust them. And honestly, the one thing I like about our podcast to all the new listeners, we don't do hot takes. We do smart takes. So we don't want to be, and I don't mean to bash any other reporter because that's not what I like to do. But listen, Manish Mehta is not really fair to the Jets coach. We all know that. There was allegedly he created a burner account on Twitter. Everything is so personal with him. That's on the Daily News for not. I mean, the Jets took away his credentials, and they were right to do it. That's for the NFL. That's for the Daily News to worry about, not us. I don't need that kind of reporting ever. But that's not real journalism. I want
It
real
exists. And these players, I'm telling you, if you're one of these guys, and I know you're going to say, okay, fine, they make money, but the reality is, it's such a weird feeling. Like, and these, a lot of the media guys, the reality is, a lot of guys that have met in the media, I don't know. Some of them, take them or leave them. Some of them are great guys. Some of them aren't. Some of them are weird guys. Some of them are just looking to do hit jobs. Some of them are looking to further their career. Some of them are looking to suck up to the teams. But it's really uncomfortable because the players are very guarded around them. The players, you look at the players and they're like, they kind of look at the media like, you're in my living space. And it's just this really uncomfortable thing. So I don't know how much I would really mind if the leagues, and I get it, I guess, now it's totally filtered if that happens, but I don't know that I mind the leagues or the teams taking that over. Here's the other thing too, by the way, I'm giving you an interesting story, and some of the listeners may know of this, and I don't have every fact, so I don't want to mention the names, but I think the best article that was ever written during the years of the Sandy Alderson Mets, okay, it basically was this whole expose on the organization. Rich is a big fan of a Brandon Nimmo, who's, the Met on-base percentage guy. Now, Sandy Alderson was trying to create an organization with a bunch of Brandon Nimmos. But what this writer exposed was that the way the Mets were going about it, they were going about it in a way that it was totally inorganic. In essence, they had come up with a system where they were punishing minor league players for swinging at the first two pitches in the at-bat, which is ridiculous. Now, guys like Daniel Murphy were fuming, and it really is the reason. It wasn't because of his values or anything. Murphy was so at odds with the organization over this, and really in shouting matches with some of the player development guys, with Alderson. That's why Murphy was not re-signed. Even like Hernandez has learned over the time, Keith Hernandez, to kind of just not say much, but he didn't like what he was seeing. Anyway, you can't just tell a player. That's not the way to develop talent. On base percentage, these things are important, but you can't force these statistics. You can't manipulate these stats. You can't just force players to take walks by telling them, if you swing at a pitch, we're going to punish you. That's what was happening, and it was absurd. And this writer writes this whole story. It was fascinating. I'm reading this. They don't say much about it on The Fan that day, so I'm like, my God, I'm going right to this story. This is amazing stuff. And the Mets had lost that night, and I'm coming right on the air, and I'm like, dude, this is everything I've been saying about how inept this organization is. And the story was missing. It was gone. Like, the story did not exist anymore. And I'm Googling the whole thing. I'm Googling the writer. I even reach out to him. Nothing. Now, this writer is employed by the Mets right now. Okay. And I don't have all the facts behind it. So we'll leave it at that. But the point is, too, the reality is most of these guys are in the organization's pockets at this point anyway.
No. I mean, that's just simply not
Depends.
true.
Or you can be like Mark Carrick is a guy now who writes for The Athletic. Mark was awesome. The guy is so knowledgeable. He was the beat reporter for Newsday. Now he's over at The Athletic. So you do have guys like this. But you also have a ton of these guys who they know that if they say the wrong thing, that they're not going to get the interviews that they want. They're not going to get the access that they want, that this is happening anyway. So they're just writing puff pieces. They're throwing softballs anyway. So really, what's the difference? Because it's so, like a lot of our society, it's so polarized. The media is either throwing these puff pieces, they're either basically looking to kiss up, get the access that they want, or to further their own career. They're kind of going to be these outsiders like Manish who are basically just going to take hits and do hit jobs. So you're either like one or the other. There's very few guys that are playing it down the middle anymore anyway, from what I can see.
Well, here's the thing, though. You need people out there that are actually doing the research and looking into it. Yes, you've got your guys doing the hit pieces and you've got your puff pieces, but if you're getting 1 out of every 10 articles that is not that either way, someone's doing research and bringing something to the table where you can actually read it, understand, and go, okay, and make your own decisions. That's why you do need the media. And I'm not a huge proponent of the media. I find a lot of what they do to be exactly what you're talking about, where they're doing, the hit pieces and so on and so forth. But you need them because there are still reporters out there that are actually doing the work and are making you think and making you understand.
It's a lot more than you think. I'm listening. I'm on Twitter more than both of you guys, and I see Like I follow all the Met reporters, and they're not asking puff questions. Like a lot of the questions, not all the time, but a lot of the questions that I want asked are asked. You know, I've actually reached out to some of the reporters and said, "Hey, can you answer?" You know, Ramos last year kept on dropping balls, pitched him, and I never got the answer I would have liked. But like, you know, I think, and the Athletic is such a great, you know, for those that don't know, the Athletic is a paid subscription service where there's no ads, so it's wonderful. Most of those articles are well researched, and they bring up more interesting topics because there's no deadlines. So they don't really just talk about the game day because they know you could get that from anywhere else. So it's a really well, you know, I love the Athletic, but you know, Ken Davidoff of the Post, Jim Bomback, all these guys, they're you know.
Well, you're talking about some columnists though. Those are guys who are going to give their opinions, who do their research. But in terms of the guys who have the access to the players, I think those guys are for the most part, it's really polarized. Those guys are either throwing the puff, or those guys, you know, in order to get access, in order to gain favor, or they're basically just going in there. They're not liked by the team, but they're just going to go in there and they're going to do their hit pieces. The guys you're mentioning, yeah, like a guy like Davidoff is great, but that's kind of a different category of a guy who's more of this, you know, a columnist, a guy who's, you know, going to give you his researched opinions. Bomback is another guy. Bomback is a guy who's written some great stuff, exposés, you know, really exposed a lot of things, especially locally here on Long Island. So, you know, that I'm not talking about those guys. We're talking about these direct access, these guys who are going into the locker room.
So, like, you know, like Tim Healy last year got, Vargas yelled at him and wanted to fight him, right? And Mickey Callaway yelled at him all because he said, "See you in Philly, Mickey." You know, these guys, you know, he's not writing puff pieces if the manager wants to fight him, but he also wasn't writing hit pieces. There's a lot of fair reporters out there. I got to tell you, like, I read a lot of stuff from also not just New York. There's not too many Chris Palmer or Chris Everett rather, Jim Rome type stuff going on. It's pretty fair, I would say. Like sports media is pretty fair. I wouldn't say national news is fair. I don't believe national news is fair on either side. But I think sports news, it's more fair than you think. And I think also as it's getting younger, they kind of don't want to go after the players as much. But, you know, if there's something to go after them for, like domestic violence or something, they report that. They don't hide it under the rug.
Now, so that's one side of it. So there's the media side, but in terms of media, in terms of how we watch the games, now that's definitely going to change, because I think what we're doing is we're headed definitely towards, we talked about a subscription service for access and for content. I think these games are going to become subscription services, because we already talked about like regional sports. So like when you talk about a regional network, like the Yankees have the Yes Network or the Mets have SNY, those right now are basically subsidized by everybody who has cable, right? So right now, SNY, you know, I put it in my cable package, and basically everybody who has cable, in essence, is funding SNY. But as people cut the cord, that's not going to happen anymore. And what's going to happen is if I want SNY, it's basically going to be called a season ticket or something that I'm going to have to pay, you know, $100, $200, $300 to watch the Mets for the season. That's coming. Just like with everything else in TV. I mean, everything is going to become a la carte. So just like I've got to pay my $10 for Netflix, it's going to happen where we're going to have to pay these season tickets because of cord cutting. This is the other change that's coming. I'm going to have to factor this in. I'm a Met fan. I want to watch, you know, all my Met games that are not on national TV. I'm going to have to pay my $200, $100 season ticket. It could be $30 a month, $20 a month, $40 a month, whatever it's going to be. But that's just a matter of time, correct?
Agreed. But you already started to get it with satellite radio too. It already started there. You're getting, you know, you can put on your satellite radio in your car and you can get every baseball game, every hockey game, every football game. And I even think the NBA now too, no matter where you are. So if you grew up in LA and you live on the East Coast and you want to listen to Lakers, it's on there. It's already happened with radio, and you know, we all know radio has been dying for the last 20 years. So I agree. It's coming to cable. Cable's got their own issues, and you're 100% right. These cable networks, these regional sports networks are all subsidized by being basically part of this basic package on everything. And yeah, as people start cutting the cord, it's just disappearing.
And then there's the other part of it too, because Rich, you mentioned the younger generation. There's the other part of it because they know that, your Instagram, your Facebook, your YouTube, your Twitter generation, they're always on social media, and those companies are going to start. They already have. I mean, we've seen the Mets on Facebook, right? We've seen the NFL on these streaming services. So they're going to start bidding for live events, and that's going to be something totally different as well. Watching games just through these social media streaming services, that's coming too, and that's a way that this younger generation consumes things anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what we have now is really convenient. It's really nice for the older folks, being able to have a cable package. But once this goes away, we're going to have to learn. And actually, I think satellite radio is in trouble. And the reason I think it's in trouble is because I know I stopped using it because I have my Pandora. I pay for Pandora and I pay for the Major League Baseball app, and I don't need anything else, And so I got rid of that. And I think who knows what's going to happen, but it's going to be different. And obviously, like newspapers, that already is becoming a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's just becoming a digital platform instead. So now you're getting your news, whatever you read, New York Times, Daily News. I mean, no one's buying that. There's the people who are buying that to read that with their coffee in the morning or to read it on the train in the morning. That's people from a different generation. That's just totally being phased out, that print media.
I find it that Richie knows actually how to use an app, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. No, it's funny because on Sundays, I used to buy the 3 New York papers, the Post, the Daily News, and sometimes Newsday, but always the Post and Daily News, and I would read it for a week. Now, I never think about getting the Sunday paper ever. Like, why would I? And that was only like 6 years ago,
I can't lie, I still get the paper, but that's for, it comes in handy in the morning. We'll leave it at that.
I also think, by the way, when you talk about Major League Baseball, listen, Major League Baseball had a bump in their attendance with the pandemic season. I think it's because nobody was tanking. I think people were interested in it. I think people were
a bump in the TV attendance.
Right. There was a bump in, right. Nobody was at the games. There was a bump in the TV attendance, bump in TV ratings because A, people couldn't go to the games. B, there wasn't much counter programming. C, there was this pent up need for baseball. D, the bigger one, you didn't have as much tanking, so everybody was being competitive. Anyway, they finally had a little bit of bump in the ratings, okay, which I think might have just been a pandemic bump. But the reason why I don't think that they care that 12 years in a row Major League attendance has fallen is they see the future, and the future is people just watching it at home. And the future is, okay, yeah, they need a gate and they need people to come to the games to an extent, but the money that they're going to make off of these on-demand fees, the money that they're bringing in from multimedia rights, from broadcast rights, from these regional networks, they're rolling in that money, and they're swimming in cash from all these fees that they're getting. And they see the future, and that the future is that you, Rich, are going to have to pay $300 for SNY if you want to watch the Mets, and Pete's going to have to pay for Yes. They know this is coming anyway. I really think that's why they're not phased, because honestly, that's a huge thing. 12 straight years that your attendance has been dwindling, but I think they understand that that's not really where their money is, and that's definitely not where their money's going to be.
I think we don't know how much they're going to charge. I think that's over. I think that's probably a little much. I mean, I would think.
I'm throwing out a number.
No, I know,
but that's what's coming.
Because that's what's going to happen for MTV, for Bravo, for all these things.
Everything is a la carte. But with these with sports teams, it's going to basically be whatever you're going to call it, a season ticket, a season pass. But only thing I'm saying is you would figure that this would be like, DEFCON 5, like 5-alarm, red flags everywhere. Oh my God, attendance is down 12 years in a row. But the money that they're making, that they are making in these last few years off of regional networks, off of the national broadcasting rights, off of, things like the MLB app, is more than covers that attendance drop. And like I said, they know more money is coming because they're going to have to charge you very soon. They want to, and they're going to profit big time off of this. Basically, pay to play or pay to watch. And so that's why they're okay with the attendance falling, in my opinion.
What do you think's happening? The NFL is a little different because it's national. the
The
game.
NFL, though, it's not right. It's national, but there's so much money coming in. And what's going to happen is, so you've had, CBS and, NBC, and these guys bid against each other, ESPN. Well, now the heavyweights are going to get involved too. It's only going to jack everything up because Google, Amazon, I don't know, Netflix could get involved. I mean, everyone's going to get involved in this. All these streaming services are going to get involved. So the NFL is just sitting back, like knowing with all these streaming services, basically they know that content is king. They need content. So now not only do you have, your CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, ESPN in the mix to bid on all this stuff, but now you're going to get, like I just said, the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks are also going to put in their bids. So the NFL, they're like, hey man, we're good. We know the billions are coming still.
Did any of you, either one of you, read about ABC possibly getting Monday Night Football back on ABC rather than on ESPN? That they're going after the rights package possibly for Sunday Night Football as well? It was something along those lines that ABC wants to come back and take Monday Night Football away from ESPN, put it back where it was for most of its life, but they were bidding on either Thursday night or some other night too to try to take it back and actually get a better package. I mean, the NFL knows money's on its way. They definitely do.
Yeah, the money's there. The money's definitely there. These guys are going to battle each other for this because, again, content is king, and especially the content that the NFL has to offer. So I think, Rich, I mean, even with the NFL, I don't think that they worry about dwindling attendance. The NFL is an interesting thing, though, because they built all these stadiums and they were selling these PSLs. And if people that's, I think, the issue, paying for these stadiums through these PSLs, these personal seat licenses that no one now wants to buy because they can just sit home and watch the games. So I think that's an issue there.
And the NFL also realized that a lot of people didn't really like the NFL experience as much as they liked their couch experience. Fighting through traffic, everyone loves the tailgate, but after the tailgate, you're sitting, especially when it gets colder, you're sitting around 5 minutes waiting for a kickoff, goes to a commercial, So they've tried to make it a little better. I mean, I know like they have all the screens now. They show the replays. They used to didn't show controversial replays. Now they show the challenge replays. They're showing scores from out of the, more often. They're showing like highlights more often. I've been to a couple of Jet games and it doesn't feel like the next play is like 3 minutes away as much. So they're trying to get better with that, but they know, with how good the TV experience is, which is great for them because they're making so much money, they lose a little money on the attendance possibly.
I think it became such a great TV experience, and the NFL just was ahead of the curve because of NFL Films and miking the sidelines and, all that, but they made it such a great TV experience that it hurt them in that regard. Listen, it can never hurt them because when they're making billions off of these rights packages and rights fees for the rights to broadcast their games, they're not going to be hurt by it. But it definitely hurt in the sense of, like you just said, why do I need to go, especially, being a Jet fan on Long Island, why am I driving over 2 bridges, paying the tolls, the gas, and, spending 10 hours in the car, whatever, a couple hours there, a couple hours back in traffic, whatever it might be, when I can just sit on my couch and I have this great TV experience.
And this is a little tangent, but, this really doesn't have to do with media, but didn't you have a PSL and then you thought that you were going to be able to buy tickets for whatever event? That's what, because it was your seat no matter at Giant Stadium. So it was yours, or MetLife. It was your seat no matter where it was. But then there was like a concert that they didn't offer you tickets for. Didn't that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I had basically what it is no. I mean, I have a PSL for the Jets. I did, which I just wound up like walking away from because it's like this is ridiculous. I had a PSL for the Jets that I bought I didn't follow them into the new stadium. Basically, because what happened was I was one of these, we talked about this in another podcast. You brought it up. I brought it up. Basically a Long Island Jet fan who just got sick and tired of, the drive to Jersey, basically the way that Long Island Jet fans were being treated, whatever. It was mostly the tickets were my family. So we gave them up. And then when my son came around, it was like, hey, you know what? That might be cool to rekindle that. Let me go back to those Jet games. But by that point, people were giving their PSLs away. So I didn't actually buy a PSL when the Jets moved into the new stadium. They were basically it's like a real estate transaction. People will sell you their PSL. but they're worthless. So I bought it off a guy for like a couple of dollars. I mean, literally. And then, so that's my seat, and I own that seat, and I have the right to, but yeah, there was all these stipulations. So supposedly I have the right to anything, any concert, but then in the fine print, it's like, the right to any concert unless it's on this day, or it's this singer or that singer. So the whole PSL thing is such baloney, and it's nonsense. But again, same thing with me. A couple of years, I know, I took you, we went to the games together. After a couple of years, it was like, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm sitting on the road again and driving and back and forth. Forget this. I'm just going to sit home and watch these games. And yeah, the PSL, I just wound up giving it up. But I mean, I think I might have bought the thing for like 25 cents, so it didn't matter. And by the way, you see how worthless the NFL tickets are. Me and you were at a game. It's a Monday night game. The Jets are getting destroyed. I think it was the Colts. The Colts were just destroying them. And now, even though my PSL only cost like a couple of cents, the tickets, they're like, the seats are like $125 for each seat for a game. And dude, the guy behind this, I don't know if you remember, the guy behind me yells, "This is the worst $5 I ever spent in my life." And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me, dude. So, these Jet seats are worthless. I'm like, God, give up on this.
Dimitri, I remember we went to see the Jets when they played at Giants Stadium I think it was opening weekend.
Well, those your dad's seats. We went against the Broncos, and that's the day that Dennis Byrd came back.
That's right.
Yes, and it was your dad's seats. He got phenomenal seats. Yeah.
But I don't think they were the company seats when we went. I think those were ones that they had bought,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think they paid anything for them. And I don't remember the stadium being full either. I mean, it was like you're at opening day and first game of the season, and it's like, we're sitting on the 50-yard line. And there's still empty seats around you.
Yeah, the Jets have their other issues, again, with the Long Island fan base having to go there. But in general, to get back to what we were talking about, they're not the only ones. It's a different set of circumstances, but around the league, I mean, even the Giants, at one point, this was unthinkable. I mean, the Giants, with their 25-year waiting list for season tickets, if you want to go to a Giants game now, you can go to a Giants game now. And because, going back, I mean, fans just rather consume the game at home. And that in and of itself is just changing, the future of how we're consuming games and how we're watching these games.
It's not just football. It's like in 2015, the Mets made the playoffs, and there were tickets on the secondary market for under face value. I mean, of course, the Mets and Major League Baseball hike up that price to like $100, and some people are like, oh, everyone will buy it. It was a cold night. They were selling it for like $60, $50, like almost half price. It was insane. So because it's nice to sit on your couch, it's nice now that we have. Before, you got to remember, not that long ago, you're watching on a little bubble where it's not high definition. It's hard to, especially in hockey, right? It's hard to see a puck, And now we have such great definition. We can have multiple TVs, multiple ways to watch a game. It's just so easy not going to a game because the media really is so great in so many ways.
Accessibility. And go back to how we started, just a podcast, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Anybody can have one. And anybody from their basement can wind up putting together something that's going to be viewed by 20,000 people on YouTube, or become a podcast that gets listened to by, 60,000 subscribers, and it's become very niche, right? You can basically have a podcast be as specific or as general as you want. There's tons of podcasters out there, tons of YouTubers out there, tons of content out there. Anybody can have a show. Everybody's the media, which is good. I mean, competition is great because I think it's made people accountable. So now your traditional radio gas bags, the guys who dominated radio for years, those guys have become exposed because there's so many other people now who have shows who, the average fan now can have a show and can be very intelligent and can basically expose the gas bags. At the same time, if anyone can have a show, then anyone can say anything. And so there's also a lot of nonsense out there too. But either way, it's just an example of how we've changed.
Absolutely. 100%. It keeps changing every day. It's, there's more podcasts, more people talking. It keeps changing no matter what.
But going back to that, I'll go back to my original point. I mean, like everyone just go to general news for a second. Everyone has a cell phone camera. So everyone's a professional cameraman all of a sudden because like, listen, we see what's going on in the streets and everything like that. You know, without these cell phone cameras, a lot of times some of these incidents wouldn't happen. We all know what I'm talking about. So it's good to have the reporters, though, the professional paid reporters know how to ask the right questions. They do the research. They foil for stuff, you know, in news when you're talking about it like that. It's detective work done by media members, and that's important. And in sports, it translates there too. You know, I mean, it just on Twitter, it's just I follow the guys on Twitter, and they give me the news that I want for the most part. They ask interesting questions for the most part. It's not just like, you know, oh, how did it feel to hit a home run? Were you smiling? No one asked that. Like, no, it's not. Because, by the way, a lot has changed. I remember there was, I wish I had this. There was a Baltimore Oriole announcer. I think he called for the team. It might have been Gary Thorne. It was Gary Thorne.
Thorne did work for the Orioles for a while. I remember Thorne was a Mets guy who worked with Bob Griffin. Thorne went to the Orioles. He's still with the Orioles, Gary Thorne.
He used to shag fly balls during batting practice. He had his own locker. He would take showers after batting practice. He'd be all sweaty. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's Gary Thorne. I don't want to, if I'm wrong, I don't think I am. And, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. Now it's way more professional. You know, I mean, it used to be like back in the day with Babe Ruth, people would go drinking with the players.
Oh, forget Babe Ruth. I mean, even you talk about Mickey Mantle. I mean, Mickey Mantle and that whole Yankee crew of Mantle and Whitey Ford and that whole group that owned New York and would be out, you know, at Toots Shore and really owning the city. Yeah, their media guys, the beat reporters were one of the boys, and basically, you know, they never put those stories out there. So different times.
And they still don't. Like, you know, like for instance, like, you know, when Jeter and A-Rod were supposedly fighting, you know, a lot of beat reporters saw them on eating in Tampa, and they were all surprised, like, oh wow, I guess they don't hate each other. They're eating breakfast together willingly. And, you know, and they saw him out there, and they didn't put that out there, you know, like they didn't, you know, I'm friends with a couple of guys, so they told me about it, but they didn't put that, they didn't, you know.
But a regular fan would at this point. So like at this point, they don't even need to, because it goes back to your point from just about a minute ago that anybody can whip out their cell phone and be like, it doesn't even matter who it is. Someone's going to put that to social media. Oh, there's Derek and A-Rod eating breakfast together. And it doesn't matter that, you know, the Yankee beat reporter saw that or not. It's not up to, you know, Michael Kay to tell us that. Anybody is just going to snap that photo, and it's going right to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the whole world knows. So in essence, it's so different now anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed in 5 years. It'll change in 5 years again. I mean, you know, it's really so quickly moving. But at the same time, like I said, there'll always be that reporter. There'll always be Jimmy. Jimmy will Superman, the reporter, right? Was it Jimmy?
Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen will always exist. There'll always be a guy who's gonna do the legwork, do the grunt work. That'll be there in 100 years. That'll be there in 1,000 years. But it'll just be spoken like a trained reporter.
It'll be well. I admit I'm a journalist, and you know, one of the last journalists left, right? And you know, so it'll still. We don't know what medium they'll watch or view the news, but they'll get the news the same way in a lot of areas.
Well, as a reporter, Richie, what is the best tapioca pudding at the old age home? I'd like to know.
Oh, God. Can you come up with a different joke? Because I never even had tapioca pudding.
Rich was one of those guys at Toots Shore trying to get the story on Mickey. Hey, Mickey, hey? So, Mick.
Feeding him shots of freaking whiskey. Tell me more. What about what happened in the locker room the other day?
Oh, Mick, how you and the boys going to do tomorrow against the Tigers? that was really one of Richie's early gigs.
I'll say that much because Mickey respected me.
Yeah.
Well, that's just about going to do it for us, and that's it for us with the Sports Pod Time Machine. Wherever, whenever, and however you listen to us and however you joined us, we thank you. We always thank you. We appreciate it. We had a lot of fun spending time with you. We hope you had some fun spending some time with us. So we can't wait for next time. For Pete Sod and Rich Glanzer, I'm Dimitri Adraktis, and this has been the Sports Pod Time Machine presented by Yackers Huddle. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Copyright 2021 Yackers Huddle Media Group, Inc., all rights reserved.